precious metals and getting an idea of what's going on in the sector. I tend to think that we're going to see some positive momentum here after, quite frankly, a very sluggish 2017 in the precious metal sector. It really seemed like 2016 was the start of the bull market following the December 2015 rate hike. 2016 happened, and there was that optimism, and it seemed like things were going our way, and then 2017 happened, and it was kind of like a false start, especially for the mining shares. But here we are in 2018, and gold is strongly over $1,300, and I think that's instilling some sort of confidence, at least, in the market. But to talk with us about this today is Bill Murphy. He's a returning guest. He's an analyst of precious metals, and he's with the Gold Antitrust Committee, GATA.org, and his website, Le Metropole Cafe. Bill, thanks for coming on Crush the Street with me today.
Hey, Kenneth, great to talk to you again. Thank you.
Well, Bill, if you wouldn't mind, based on kind of how I introduced the call here, can I get your thoughts on precious metals at the moment?
Yeah, it's an extraordinary time. I've never seen such suppression in the 20 years I've been doing this in terms of yes, gold's gone up. Something it's only been down like 1 day in 3 weeks, but the gains are minuscule. The gold open interest on the COMEX, the short and long positions of traders, has gone up like 100,000 contracts in 2 weeks. The gold cartel, as we call it, the bullion banks and the government, are going bonkers to stop the price from going above 13.20. Silver's the worst acting market I've ever seen in 40 years. It can't even stay above 17, which is 1/3 the price it was 38 years ago. All other assets are flying, whether, it was Bitcoin last year, as you all know, and the stock market just soars every day, and other assets, art and real estate, are flying. And gold's at this pitiful price. And they're just trying to do everything they can to keep their control intact. And don't get me wrong, I think gold and silver are just going to go berserk and explode when this gold cartel, as we call it, blows up. It's just, I've never seen such suppression concentrated in such a short period of time. And it's going to end, but it's very frustrating for someone who watches it all day long like I do.
Well, it's kind of an interesting dynamic here going into 2018. The market seems to be getting stronger if you listen to the mainstream news outlet, and to a certain degree, we're seeing some strength with the jobs, and GDP looks like it's going to be as high as it's been in a while. And this is traditionally not super positive for gold. But in light of that, I know you're not super excited in terms of what we're seeing with gold with its minor moves. We are seeing some strength in gold in the face of what is seemingly a stronger market. And usually gold is a safe haven type of asset. So, any comments as to the dynamics of the quote-unquote strong?
That's a very good point, and that's absolutely true. At the same time, the dollar is under a lot of pressure. You have to wonder, if things are so good in the United States, in real terms, why is the dollar acting so poorly? Terrible. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you've got oil that's took out $64 a barrel. It doesn't seem like there's much resistance. It's 4-year highs till it gets to 80. It's just that gold and silver are the cheapest assets in the world, and they should be much higher than they are. They would be if this gold cartel can be overrun. At the time being, as I said earlier, they are going all out like I've never seen to stop these markets. And do I think they're both going to explode? And when silver gets above 21, it's going to go absolutely bonkers? Absolutely, very much so. It's just frustrating to see them go into action like they are. And yes, what the heck? We've only had 1 or 2 down days in 3 weeks in gold, but it's so labored, and gold should have been blown through 1,400 by now.
Right. Well, I know what you mean, and having watched the most recent bull market in Bitcoin, we got used to seeing $100 moves and more. I think we've seen some $1,000 moves in a day in Bitcoin, and it's almost made us numb to a $10 move in gold, which that's what we've gotten used to getting excited about, right? And when it's $100, it's like the biggest deal in the world. But that's really what we should be seeing, and that's what I'm gathering from you. Eventually, this should just burst open.
Well, and that's a very good point. I recall a year ago, I was at a Jeff Berwick conference, and the Bitcoin people were excited because gold was Bitcoin was 1240, it's the same price as gold. And I was like, got all disgusted. And they were like, these guys are so excited. And of course, that's nothing compared to what it is now. It's, 1,000% higher than that. And good for them. And to me, it just shows how much an outside the market vehicle, or what it's done, how much gold and silver are suppressed. This is how bad the situation is in terms of what this gold cartel has done. And they are going to blow up. And if I'm correct, when they lose control of silver, which to me is their kryptonite, you're going to see silver trade in similar fashion to a Bitcoin once it blows through 21.
Yeah, good point on that. Okay, well, Bill, let's talk then about some of the mining shares. We're starting to see some moves in the mining shares. And is this indicative to you of strength with the metal? A lot of times the mining shares move ahead of the metals.
Well, you had the HUI took out a triple bottom, and it looked horrendous just a few weeks ago. And of course, it was a false breakdown, which is the best kind of thing for a bull market. And then it's rallied straight back up to the 195 area or whatever, and it's been very quiet. The problem is there's still not much excitement. It certainly is a good change of pace from what we've seen, but if you look at the HUI over the past year, it's really nothing. And when you compare it to other stock prices, and that's part of the problem, in my opinion, is that we have a relative issue in the sense of as I mentioned, what other assets have done, and it's completely it should not be, and it will change. But they're trying to keep things under control, and I think the gold silver shares will be one of the great investments of all time at these levels. And as also that the risk-reward ratio in buying physical gold and silver at these levels is as good as it's ever been in history. Doesn't mean we can't go down. It just means the upside is so extraordinary compared to the downside. Even with all this suppression, it's a great time for investors to be looking at some of these beaten-up shares. And by the way, if I may add, at the turn of the century, some of these gold and silver shares, the smaller ones, exploration ones and juniors, traded almost in similar returns from bottom to top as a Bitcoin did. I know that's hard to imagine, but not quite as much, but they were extraordinary. Ones that went from a penny to $3 and so on.
Sure. I think it was probably easier to disregard Bitcoin when, the market cap of either Bitcoin or the entire market cap of the cryptocurrency space was a couple $2 billion, and say that there is really no diversion of attention. But we now have the cryptocurrency space approaching $1 trillion in total market valuation. And I'm just wondering, along with the manipulation of precious metals, do you think a lot of people are being sidetracked from putting their money into precious metals because of the Bitcoin sideshow?
No question about it. This is many of the reasons what Bitcoin has done to cryptocurrencies is why many of us were gold and silver in the first place, to be out of the system with all the money that it's flowing into it. And again, as I said, good for those people. And so for it's short term, it's taking it's getting all kinds of attention, and I think really hurt the precious metal sector. However, if I may, I think it's going to be a big boon as this year goes on, in the sense that the momentum traders that have made so much money in that sector and in other assets are not going to be afraid to jump all over gold and silver once they get moving, because that's where all the money's been made by momentum guys. And they won't be afraid to jump in gold and silver, so that when it really gets going, it can keep going like these other assets have, and be the major problem for what I call the gold cartel's ability to keep this suppression going. So a short-term negative, medium-term big positive.
Yeah, you know what? It's a good point, because a lot of the sound money people have been enriched in a certain way, and most of them are very bullish precious metals. It's not one or the other. Many people that I talk to are diversifying into precious metals because they do recognize that the cryptos have gone up a lot, and they're more speculative, and they're diversifying into precious metals. And it could be said that the sound money community has been enriched, and the flow of money to go into the precious metals is on the sidelines waiting to really flood in.
Well, yes, and as you're mentioning, so I don't sound like an angry old man here, is that the setbacks in gold, they're all being bought. And it's a very good sign. You know, they've been trying to get the gold market down, and it hasn't worked. They won't let it go up, but they've been unable to, you know, to get the price any lower, which is why we're at, you know, recent highs for this move. So it's a big struggle. It's just that the prices should be and will be much, much higher than they are now.
All right, Bill. Well, is there any sort of optimism that you see breaking down in the gold cartel in 2018? Do you think cryptocurrencies is helping that? Is it possible that, you know, they kind of
yeah, I think some of the momentum trades will come there, and I think the realization of how cheap gold and silver are is just going to become more blatant as this year goes on. So I'm extremely optimistic of what is to come, and my guess is, and it's just a guess, is that we're not going to have a gradual bull moves like we've seen in the past in gold and silver. It's going to explode this time, and that's because the gold cartel, as I call them, is going to be overrun, and all this suppression nonsense and what we're seeing, like today, for example, with, you know, gold up a couple of bucks, it breaks above 13.20, they stop it. Silver can't get above 17 with every outside factor is incredibly bullish. That's going to change, and when that changes, it's going to be quite something, I think.
All right, Bill. Well, thanks for coming on CrushTheStreet.com. If people want to learn more about your work and what you do and you following the sector, please let them know where they can go and what they'll find.
Well, they can go to LaMetropoleCafe.com and sign up for a 2-week free trial and see the information is of value. And my colleague Chris Powell does a great job at www.gada.org and can get on his mail list. And he stays on top of a bunch of things. And we're still fighting the good fight. And eventually we think that this gold cartel is doing will be a big financial market scandal, but like these sex scandals, it's taking decades to expose, and because we're going